lot of things.
All right. Yeah. So we've been conversing for a few minutes, but we're going to go ahead and, just kind of pick up, because this is going to be a random conversation with my guy, Antwuan Ace Hill, Mr. Rethink How You Move. Yeah. We see it on the video. If you're listening to the audio, you don't see he got a t-shirt on that says Rethink How You Move. And I got to give him a sidebar before, because again, this is going to be a round robin. We just talking about life here, because there's a lot going on. And I think this is going to be something that a lot of people need to hear. Rethink How You Move, brother. I use that on a very regular basis. I give you credit, obviously, but I was like, my guy, I was down at UT the other day speaking with some folks and talking about, athletes and mentorship, etc. And I mentioned, I said, there's a VFL. And for those that are listening that aren't in the whole UT culture, VFL is Vol for Life. Basically folks who are affiliated with the University of Tennessee, played ball, etc. They're considered VFLs or Vols for Life. But I mentioned to somebody down there that it's a VFL, the guy that I'm speaking to right now, my guy, Antwuan Hill, that the brand that he's created, their tagline is Rethink How You Move, or Rethink the Way You Move. And I think that is so poignant, especially in all this political BS that we got going on, but just in life in general. But I mentioned to the person down there, I was just like, this concept is something that young athletes, but young students, but everybody needs to be very mindful of. What are your thoughts about that, brother?
Well,
and we'll get into your intro and stuff later too. So
I must say, having created it, I wholeheartedly agree. And just quick backstory. The premise of that, or that tagline, came from I have a transportation company. We do ground transportation, luxury ground transportation for everybody, everywhere. But when I was changing the name of the company from A Concierge Services to Ace Elite Services, I was thinking of a tagline, and I started thinking of how I do my transportation business and what differentiates me from everybody else. And it's the service, the quality of service, it's the professionalism, it's the professional chauffeurs, et cetera, et cetera. And so my tagline became Rethink the Way You Move, reaching out to customers like, this is how you normally get from point A to point B with higher services. Now rethink that and think of a better way to travel. Now, fast forward to the pandemic, we're stuck in a house, nobody's doing anything. I wrote a book. Mm-hmm. The book was about my life and about how I transitioned from different jobs to different eras in my life, to different segments, to different ups and downs and all that stuff. And along the way, at each point, I would think about the decisions that I was making at that time. And then I said, if I want to do something different, I need to make better decisions. Mm-hmm. And so as I progressed through life, it became Rethink the Way You Move. And so hence the name of the book. Then the clothing line, because people's like, man, I like your book. You have a clothing line. They said the third, like, I don't, but I should get one. So came up with Ace Apparel. And again, the tagline for the clothing line was Rethink the Way You Move. And I don't care where I go, what part of the country I'm in, people see the shirt, like, I like that. You're like, that makes sense. And it's applicable, as you said, to everybody in all walks of life, in different sectors of their life, whether they're athletes, whether they're changing careers, whether they're whatever. If you don't like that outcome that you're getting, rethink the way you move.
Rethink the way you move. Like, it's, to me, it's such a powerful statement. And it also is like radical responsibility or radical accountability as well. Because it's not rethink what's moving, it's rethink the way you move. And that puts the onus on you to take the steps. That puts the responsibility on you to take the action, but it also puts the responsibility on you to think, right? And so
that's critical.
It's very critical. But the thing is, what you come to realize for a lot of people is a lot of people are challenged with taking personal responsibility, and they want to pawn it off on someone else, right? And so, like, for me, like in the executive coaching space or in the consulting space or whatever, I enjoy coaching and consulting because I'm not telling you what to do. I'm prompting and I'm helping you to see things through different lenses from different angles, but I'm not making the decision for you. It's up to you to take the decision. It's up to you to take the action. It's up to you to put the plan in place and to execute on it. I'm just here to help you think about it a little differently. I'm here
Right.
to actually help you rethink the way you
The way
move,
you move.
right?
And I
But
think,
yeah,
go ahead.
go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, you hear the slogan all the time that you are the sum of your experiences, or you're the sum of a collective of your environment that you grew up in. Or now people say, you become uh, a replica of the 5 people that you spend the most time with.
Yep.
To agree, I think that's true, but I think we're missing it because, again, I think we are the sum of what we think about the most. And the reason why I say that is because you can have 2 brothers that grew up in the same household, same parents, same structure, same value system, same everything. One goes out to be a criminal, one goes out to be CEO of a company. What's the difference? They grew up in the same environment, around the same people, and all of that. They had different thought processes about what they wanted out of life and how they wanted to achieve those things. So I think, again, using the word think, I think we are the sum of the 5 things that we think about the most every day.
That's interesting. The things we think about the most every
As
day.
opposed to the people that we are surround ourselves with.
But so now I think you jump into this whole bucket of the chicken versus the conversation of the chicken or the egg, right? What spawns you to think about that? So
Doesn't matter.
Well, no, actually it does matter because, you don't necessarily cultivate thoughts without some type of stimulus, right? Some level of exposure, some level of something. Yes, there are epigenetic or outside factors. And then you have this, there's some science that shows like the generational trauma gets passed down. And so you have these instances or these things within
Sure.
your DNA that potentially express themselves. And, the old folks back in the day used to say about a kid, that baby done been here before. Right. And so I think there is some of that. There's also some of it when it comes to experiences, but even as it pertains to your thoughts, it really comes down to what is that thing that's spawning your thoughts, because they just don't appear out of thin air. And that's the whole part that, I'm kind of the chicken and the egg conversation.
Well, I took the chicken and the egg from a different angle.
Okay.
Some people might think of it like, okay, do we think of where we want to be in life based on what we see in our environment growing up? Or that's the chicken before the egg concept.
Okay. I'm following. Okay.
The egg before the chicken concept is that whatever plot you're given in life when you're born, that's it. You just have to make the most of it.
Okay.
So when I said it doesn't matter,
Okay,
where I was born, who I was born to, the environment that I grew up in can influence my decision making. It can influence what I think about, but none of that determines where I end up. Meaning, you could be born with a silver spoon in your mouth and end up going to jail. You could be born in the ghetto on Section 8 and then a billionaire.
Yeah. Okay.
So when I say it doesn't matter, I'm saying that, again, my tagline is rethink the way you move. You want something different in life, think of a different path, a different alternative, different actions to get to a different mean, to a different end. So,
yeah. But it still comes back to the notion of what's
determined by where we started.
No, I agree. Now, I think that,
So
but I think that's totally different. Like, again, you can have similar inputs and totally different outputs, right? Equal inputs do not equate to equal outputs. Everybody's math does not math the same way because it's us, each individual. Even identical twins are still 2 unique individuals, even though they share the same DNA, right? And so, in being the same house with the same access to resources, etc., they're still 2 different people. Okay. So therefore, equal inputs do not necessarily equate to the exact same output where they marry the same type, they marry identical twins and make the same amount of money. There's no guarantee on that, right? Because there are other variables in play.
But can they still reach the same plateau, even if they do it different ways?
They could, but the reality is it's not even about, see, what I was talking about with the chicken or the egg, I was coming at it through the lens of your thoughts and the actions you take matter. But at times we have to take a step back and think about what is inspiring that thought.
Oh,
Because without that particular thought, and that's where the chicken versus the egg, it's like, yes, I want to get to a different destination, or I want something different in my life. But the reality is, without an exposure at times, I don't even realize that there are other alternatives out there, right?
sure.
I mean, you think about back in the day, say the turn of the 20th century, before cars, hit the road, right? And everybody was on a horse, and some dude came running around talking about this thing called a car. Folks are like, "What the hell are you talking about, man? A car? What is this? Wheels and a engine? We've seen a locomotive, but we've never seen anything on the road like that. You're tripping." Right? Because they've never been able to see that. They've been exposed to it. You fast
Right.
forward 25 years, and it's odd to see somebody riding a horse down the street.
But it's interesting that you say that, because I always have this conversation because I am in transportation industry,
Absolutely.
and transportation has evolved over the years and all of that. What is the earliest form of transportation?
The earliest form of transportation I would say is walking.
Outside of walking, assisted transportation.
Oh, assisted transportation. The earliest form of assisted transportation outside of walking or being carried by someone, I guess that would fall in the same category as walking.
Right.
Okay. Oh, yeah, yeah. So if it weren't that, the earliest form of transportation would outside of walking was probably, I would say probably some type of flotation boat or something. That would probably be my
Flotation
assumption.
boat,
Yeah. Canoe,
the
something like that.
wheel come into
Yeah.
place.
I would
Horse.
probably even say that I'd probably say the boat. I'm like, if you
Yeah.
weren't walking or you weren't on the back of a animal or something, you
Right.
were, you know,
So
on a
probably a
boat.
horse was the fastest, or a mule was probably
Yeah,
the
something
first
like
form
that.
of
Some
transportation.
kind of animal. Yeah.
Now, you said boat.
Yes.
Is there a form of transportation that's ever been invented that does not exist today?
What do you mean?
Flotation device, the boat. Do we still use
Yes.
boats today?
Yes. Absolutely.
Horse. Do people
No,
still
we still
horseback?
use. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Train?
Yep. Absolutely.
Whatever. There is no form of transportation is the only industry that continues to innovate, but it never completely goes away from its original source.
That is interesting, dude. Okay. Okay. Now that's interesting because, huh? I never thought about it like that. So once a form of transportation is indoctrinated or adopted, that form of transportation, it might not be as dominant or
Right.
as prevalent as it was, but
Right.
it never goes away. It's always still an option.
Yes.
That is fascinating. I never thought
People
about
still
it like
horseback ride. People still get carriage rides. You
that's
go.
right. They
You,
ride camels, they still ride
yeah.
bikes, they still, gasoline cars, everything's moving to electric. So now it's electric cars, whatever. That is interesting. Yeah, I never thought about it like that.
Yes. So I think my industry is foolproof in terms of being obsolete or anything like that. But
Well, now, okay, again, because this is wide ranging conversation. You open up an opportunity. So your industry is foolproof as it pertains to transportation in general. Okay,
yeah,
but the mode of transportation will will adapt and change. Correct.
sure, 100%.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, just making
And
sure.
and I've positioned myself, which I'm sure we'll get into later,
Okay.
to take the responsibility of the evolution of transportation off of myself and put it upon other people.
So you know what? Okay, we can go on to other subjects later, but right now let's go ahead and jump into that. So the evolution of transportation and how your transportation service has positioned you to take the onus off of you as the transportation provider to others across the board. How have you done that? Talk a little bit about, ACE Elite Services and how that's kind of evolved, not kind of, how it has evolved
Mhm.
over the course of the last few years.
Interesting. Instead of going back to the origin in 2007, let's go back to the year before the pandemic.
Okay.
2019, or let's go back to 2016.
Okay.
I was living in Atlanta, and then a series of fortunate and unfortunate events migrated me to California.
Mm-hmm.
When I came to California, even though I had a national base in terms of we had affiliates, so we provide ground transportation, luxury ground transportation for regular people, celebrities, entertainers, athletes, you name it, Fortune 500, CEOs, some of the wealthiest people in the world. We've provided transportation for them, ground transportation. When I moved to California, I had to rethink, like, okay, now I'm in a new market. How do I generate revenue? And what is the quickest way to generate revenue? And it was like, I really don't know anybody, hadn't had any affiliates in the area, and I was in San Diego at the time. And I said, why don't I start like a monthly membership? And what I was doing is, like, the average cost of ground transportation to the airport was between $180 to $100. Mm-hmm. And I said, instead of a client paying $80 to $100 for one transfer, why don't I give them $450?
Okay.
Now, I only had one vehicle out in San Diego at the time, and I was like, it's going to cost me to spend more money in fuel and all of this and not make as much profit. But by me offering the same services at a substantially discounted rate, I can increase my viewership, as it were, or I can increase my brand exposure. I can get more clients, people start, and all that stuff. And so then once you have a base of clientele in this market, then you can begin to elevate your prices. So that's how the membership model started. It was very analog, very antiquated at the time. It was like, send an email of where you want to go, what time you want to be picked up, and then we'll call you back once we have a schedule. Okay. Fast forward to 2019. By then, we had did a mobile version of the app. It was still analog in its nature, where somebody can fill out a request of, I want to get picked up at 7 a.m. I'm going to Tyson Airport, 3 people, 3 pieces of luggage. And then we'll get the email, and then we'll call them back or email them back like, okay, it's been confirmed. Here's your driver detail. Here's the vehicle information, et cetera, et cetera. So that was like a 3-step process. I went to a NBA Tech Summit in San Francisco in 2019. I don't know if you remember Shelvin Mack. He used to play for the Atlanta Hawks, Market Butler and all that. He was a friend of mine, so he invited me out to that. And Andre Iguodala used to put it on every year. It was called the NBA Tech Summit. But it was bring all these venture capitalists, all these tech people. And really what he was trying to do is show NBA players how to diversify their funds. Like, okay, stop buying cars, stop buying house, stop buying all this jewelry. Invest. Put your money in tech. That's invest. Right. And I'm bringing together all the smartest people in the world. The owner of the Sacramento Kings was there. Different people from different ventures were there. Have you ever seen Super Pump? You like it?
You said Super Pumped?
Super Pump. It was the story about Uber.
Yes, I watched a couple of the episodes of that. I didn't watch the whole thing. That was about the Travis, the Kalanick, and all of that. Yep. I watched a couple. I didn't watch the full thing, but I watched a few of the episodes.
Okay, if you remember early on, in the first episode, I think it's only like 8 episodes.
Okay, yeah, what many?
Travis was trying to get a meeting with one of the biggest VCs in Silicon Valley, Bill Gurley.
I remember. Yep, and Gurley ended up coming on. I remember that. Yep. Yes. I remember that.
So I met the real Bill Gurley in San Francisco at this NBA Tech Summit in 2019.
Okay.
And he was talking about his journey with Uber and how everything got started and all of that. And initially, he put $12 million into Uber in 2008 for 14.5%.
Lord have mercy. Okay.
When everything went down, I don't know if you finished, but inevitably they end up kicking Travis Kalanick out of his own company. They went public. They did all this stuff. Bill Gurley ended up selling 13.5% of his shares and keeping 1%.
Okay.
That $12 million initial investment, you know what he ended up cashing out in?
Probably in about the 8 to 10 billion range, something like that.
Well, no, the valuation was like 40 billion, and he had like
He had 10%, so he
well
had
13%. He ended up
13,
cashing out at 900 million
900 million. Yeah, yeah.
from 12.
Okay. Great return.
Great return. But anyway, he was on this panel discussion, and listened to him. And after the panel discussion, it's kind of like a small crowd. And he's walking through the crowd, and I pull his coattail. And I gave him my 30-second elevator pitch. It's like, hey, this is me, this is where I'm from, this is what I'm doing. I have a mobile app. It's going to provide airport transfers, people all over the country with a subscription price, subscription based. And I was like, this is something that hasn't happened in transportation ever, where you combine luxury transportation with a subscription.
Okay.
He said to me, he said, I think you're onto something. He said, I really like this. And he turned around and walked away. Got about 5 feet, turned back around and came back and said, here's my email. Send me the specs and everything about this mobile app.
Okay.
I came back to LA, and I was in LA, and I called my lawyers, and they said, if you send it to them, you'll never see it again. Uber would have it. And that's just a lesson about being first in the market. Don't really introduce what you have and what you're trying to do if it's new and innovative until you get in the marketplace. Then once it's in the marketplace, people can't steal it. They can only become a part of it or buy you out of it.
That's right. That's
right.
But pause. No. So that's interesting. Just the whole notion of like the first mover advantage. Once it's already in the marketplace, then it's yours, or you have the first mover advantage, and you're not, it's not like NDAs and all this kind of stuff having to go down before non-disclosure agreements, for those that don't know what an NDA is.
And most VCs would never sign an NDA anyway.
That's right. So because they talk to so many people all across the board, et cetera. And so that's interesting that it kind of, instead of it being a situation in which you got an investment, it was confirmation that you were on the right track because you generated interest.
Exactly. From somebody who's been in this space and at the top of this space. At the time, Uber was the pinnacle of transportation with the mobile app.
Interesting. Now hold on. Now you said something about how this has never been done. This has never been done in the car space, but what about like in the airline, like the Marquis Jet and the Net Jets and all the different
so
fractional share where they're playing? Is that similar, but just with airplanes versus cars?
It's been done in part in the airspace.
Okay.
And I used to be a member of JetSmarter. And the way JetSmarter works is that you pay an annual fee, and now you have access to all of these private jet flights. Now you can charter your own flight. And for people who don't know, if you want to charter a private jet, it's funny, I had a conversation with my brother yesterday about private jets, and he was like, why are you having a conversation with me? But flying private is way more affordable than what people think. They just, the stigma of private flights is like, it's $1 million. But with JetSmarter, you pay an annual fee, and now you have access to see all of these private flights that are traveling from point A to point B around the country, around the world on a daily basis. Okay. And what happens is when people charter a plane to go from New York to LA, they charter the whole aircraft, obviously.
But now, they only need a certain number of seats. They might have need 5 seats instead of 5 open seats. Yeah. And
if you're on a G4, you can have anywhere from 9 to 12 seats. Okay. Now, if that family has to pay for that whole flight. And from LA to New York, depending on the size of the plane, you can be from $25,000 to $60,000. Now, by them booking it through JetSmarter says, okay, if you only want your family to be on this plane and there's 5 of you, and you have 7 seats left, just pay the whole $50,000. But if you want to reduce your costs, we'll still take you from LA to New York or New York to LA. You can open up these other 7 seats. And if somebody wants to hitch a ride, they can do that. Now, if we been a member of JetSmarter, that 1 seat may cost me $2,000.
Okay. Which would be comparable to probably a first class flight.
Exactly.
From New York to LA.
Exactly. Funny thing is, one day I saw a flight from LA to Teterboro, New York.
Okay.
And it was leaving out on a Friday and it was returning on a Tuesday. Now, by me being a member, I had access to this. But what happened was the seat was free because the person who chartered the flight, they was like, well, we just open up the other seats if somebody want to get on it, but we don't want anything from it.
Interesting.
So I grabbed the seat. It was like, because I wanted to go to New York. Rodney, my best friend, he was in New Jersey, like I can go spend some time with him or whatever. And really was just like, you know what? I can get on a G4 and go across country and come back for $0. Why not?
Yeah, why not?
So I grabbed the seat. When I got to the Clearport, the family had an emergency where they couldn't go. The
so
charter was already paid for. I had the whole flight to myself.
Wow.
From LA to New York on a G4 with $0 cost.
Wow. That's fascinating.
So there's advantages. So in part, in air travel, you do have memberships, but when you have these air memberships, you have a cost just to be a part of, to have access to it.
That's right.
And
sometimes then on
sometimes
top of that, you still have to buy so that you pay the airline membership just to get access to
a seat that's on this.
Yes, but you still have to pay for that seat depending on, and that's negotiable depending on the flight, the leg, the whatever. So you just pay for access to basically get on the plane.
Exactly. And so you had different companies doing it, like Jet Set. They had a $99 a monthly fee where you can subscribe, and they never really got off the ground. Then they folded, then they try to reintroduce themselves or rebrand themselves or whatever. But they was going to give you a cheaper version of that same sort of platform. So what I did in transportation was like, let me bundle together a certain number of trips, airport transfers, and put a fixed cost to it.
Okay.
And that fixed cost is going to be substantially less than what they would pay to go to and from on a single trip, and be very comparable to what it would cost for them to use a taxi or a rideshare such as Uber or Lyft. Now, the advantage in doing that is that I still give the customers access to professional chauffeurs, luxury vehicles, and full automation through a mobile app.
Okay.
But at a substantially reduced cost. So now for customers used to paying Uber prices or rideshare prices, I'm not bad talking about Uber or anything, but if they're used to paying $40 to go to the airport, and sometimes it may be $50 depending on surge prices or whatever, but when the car shows up to pick them up, it's a Toyota Prius or it's a Honda Accord, they got a baby in the back, they got dog hair, they got this and that, whatever. Now they can pay that same price and still have a professional vehicle show up and a professional chauffeur. And now their service and their experience has been elevated, but their cost has not.
Now hold on. Now this goes to the monthly cost. So this is valuable to an individual who is, monthly traveling back and forth to the airport, who's using the service on a regular basis due to business, basically business or whatever. Like if you travel a lot, this makes sense, correct?
If you travel a lot, it makes extreme sense. If you travel little, it still makes sense. Case in point, I had a friend call me yesterday. He was in New York. He said, "Can I use your app as a one-off? I just, I'm flying into Atlanta later in the week. Then I'm flying back to Los Angeles on Sunday." I said, "You can use it as a one-off, but you're going to pay as an a la carte service, but you're going to pay the full price of a transfer." I said, "But you can do the membership, and the base membership is $210 for 5 transfers anywhere in the country."
Okay.
He said, "Well, I just looked at that," and he said, he looked up the price to get picked up in New York on Thursday and go to JFK. He said it was $200 for that one transfer.
Now, is that with one of the rideshare services, or is that with another like black?
That's like a black car limousine service.
Okay, gotcha.
Rideshare, that it'll be about $80.
Okay, gotcha.
Now, I said you could pay that, or you could pay $210 for my monthly membership. A vehicle will pick you up Thursday in New York, take you to the airport. When you get to Atlanta, a vehicle will pick you up, take you to your hotel. When you leave on Sunday and go back to LA, a vehicle will pick you up and take you to your house. All of that still for $210, and you're not paying any additional charges, surcharges, anything like that. So for the cost of one limousine company in New York, he can have 5 of those services.
Wow. And that's 5 transfers. So that's
Yeah.
basically, so each trip is basically 2, correct?
Each trip is 4, technically 4.
Okay.
So when you leave your house, go to the
airport.
airport. When you get to your destination, to the hotel. When you're going to leave destination, hotel, back to the airport, and then you get home,
okay,
back to the house. So if you travel once a month, our base membership could be very applicable to you and very cost saving, time saving, and all that stuff. If you travel once a week for business, doing our unlimited services would probably be your best model. And that's $250 a month for unlimited transfers. And then every transfer is $35.
You said every transfer is $35?
On the unlimited plan. So you pay $250 a month to have access to unlimited car service.
Okay. And then each transfer is $35.
It's only $35.
And so that would be, I'm just putting it together. So that's 4 transfers for each trip. So it'd be 35 times 4 for each trip on top of the 250. But when you're talking about black car service, and now what type of cars are we talking about when it comes to the transfers? Is it like, elevated stuff, or is it?
We're talking about vehicles that are 3 years or newer. We're talking in terms of SUVs for Suburbans, Chevy Suburbans, Cadillac Escalades, Yukon Denali XLs,
okay,
or Lincoln Navigator L's livery versions. When we talk about sedans, you're talking about the XCS Cadillac, the Mercedes-Benz. Excuse me. We do use Tesla Model X, their SUV, Tesla. And we use like the Genesis G90. So okay. It's full livery black car service. It's not, nobody's going to pick you up in a Toyota Prius. Nobody's going to pick you up in a Honda Accord. These are fine automobiles for personal use, but not for, nobody's going to pick you up in a 2-seater BMW to go to the airport where you're sitting holding your carry-on in your
lap. Yeah,
exactly. So, but in terms of now, the unlimited plan is more for corporate people.
Yeah, absolutely.
You just sign somebody up for that because they're used to paying. If you go to LA and get a transfer in a black car service, you're paying $175.
Okay.
If you're in Atlanta, Georgia, you're paying $95 to $110 per transfer.
Okay.
So obviously, it's a cost saving from a corporate standpoint, but it's still convenient because it's fully automated.
Yeah.
You download the app. You put in your information, it goes out to drivers in that area, driver accepted. You get a notification, this is your driver, this is what they look like, this is the vehicle, this is their phone number, this is their license plate number, this is when they're gonna pick you up. You see when the driver gets to your location, just like Uber, you can track them on the map and all that stuff. And then when they get picked up, they take you to the airport, drop you off. You don't have to pay them any money. You don't have to do anything beyond that. Everything is automated.
Now, and then do you have, is it just in the United States? Is it just North America? Is it global? Like what's the current scope of, your coverage?
Right now it's just in the US, it has the ability or it has the capabilities to be global right now, but you have different laws and different jurisdictional things in each country that it's not beneficial for us to segue into now. As we grow and get to that point, then we'll do that. And we're taking the business model of how Uber and Lyft started. Uber started off of an idea from Travis Kalanick when he was in Paris, but he went back to San Francisco and got it started there. Then he moved to Washington, Oregon. Then he moved to New York, and then just start facilitating across the country. Because we are an airport membership service, then obviously somebody is leaving one city and flying to another. We provide services all over the US, but we're only starting marketing in specific demographics because we don't want to start marketing nationwide and then overload our system where we don't have the capacity to fulfill. So right now, we are advertising directly in Atlanta, Georgia, and in Los Angeles.
Okay.
Because we can facilitate in those 2 areas. Although if somebody's flying from Atlanta to New York or Atlanta, Miami, we're still going to be able to provide services on that back end We're just not advertising in those other markets yet.
Mm.
And once
Oh, go ahead.
I would say once we have a good foothold in a market, and inevitably because you are doing something in the market, you're going to have growth in other areas. Like we came to Atlanta. We bought a house in Atlanta. You mentioned we were by Coastal at the beginning of September. I touched down in September. We got everything situated with the house in about a week and a half, which was remarkable in itself. And then I went out and we recruited 56 drivers in the Atlanta market by itself.
Interesting. Okay. Now, okay. And so that being said, how, I mean, there might be some trade secrets or whatever that you have within your organization, but so how is that? Are these subcontractors of other transportation companies? Are these independent vehicle owners that are in network with, you know, your organization, or are these all drivers that are a part of your organization?
All three. We have drivers that are part of so we have over 1,500 direct affiliates that we've worked with, and I've been in this business for 17 years.
Okay.
So we have a great foundation of affiliates all over the country that we use to facilitate our clients. So we just tapped into those resources initially. We also came and reached out to other independent operators in the area, because independent operators, they have a TCP number, they have a social permit, they have an airport permit, and they may put their name on a business card and say, I do transportation.
Okay.
But they accept work from all other companies.
Gotcha.
They may go and drive for Uber. They have their own clientele. Now we're going to say, okay, continue doing what you're doing, but we have another way of providing services to clients that you already facilitate, and you can get paid in this way. Join our platform. Don't stop what you're doing. You still can do what you're doing, but join our platform as well. Inevitably, we think that our platform is going to overtake the revenue that they're making with all these other entities, and they can just use our platform primarily. Okay. That is the goal. But we also have companies that may have 30 drivers and 30 vehicles. We reach out to those companies and say, okay, introduce our platform to them, and they have the ability to put their company on our platform and all of their drivers or some of their drivers on the platform. So we use all of those modes. And then Uber does have a black car service or an SUV service. Some of those drivers that drive for Uber or Lyft in their elevated tiers also work for other limo companies. And so we just give them another option of revenue.
So, okay. So that's interesting. So when I'm hearing what you're talking about, like, I guess, have you thought about it through the corporate lens of, okay, you say Los Angeles and Atlanta, you know what, it might make sense for me to, in essence, identify every major corporate entity in both Los Angeles and Atlanta, and they're probably hundreds, if not thousands, if you collectively look at both of them, and find or create some type of corporate transportation partnership with those specific entities, especially if they're headquartered in either Atlanta or Los Angeles, and just be their exclusive airport transfer partner, so to speak, versus this being something that's out. I mean, you can do it for the individuals, but kind of looking at the verticals here, have you thought about it through that particular lens?
Yes, and we do both. So, and it's funny, I did a financial projection for the rest of 2024, all of 2025, and all of 2026. I did that 2 nights ago.
Okay.
And case in point, we believe that we're going to segue. You're going to have both sides of it. You're going to have the consumer side, just the regular consumer side, then you're going to have the corporate side. Okay. We believe that in 2025, the consumer side is going to initially outpace the corporate side in the first half of the year. Second half of next year, it's going to balance itself out.
And going
2026,
corporate,
you're going to see a reversal where it's going to be majority corporate, and then you're still going to have that consumer base. We don't want to eliminate that consumer base because we think that it's something that's going to, we want to do 2 things. One, we want to put money into the chauffeur's pockets
Okay.
and provide a stable living for them. And this transportation industry is tricky.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
you have the ebbs and flows. You have summer months where things die down in certain areas, and then they pick back up in the winter months when business travel. In other rural areas, you have things that pick up in the summer because of concerts, because of entertainment activities, because of this, that, and the third, and then it dies off in the fall and winter because it's not a big economic base in terms of corporate travel and all of that.
Okay.
So how do they still make money in a downturn? Now, if you provide a service where that can speak and resonate with individual consumers as well as corporations, then you kind of level that out.
Well, hold on. So the reason I was saying with the corporate, I'm talking about on your end having the corporate contracts, whereas
Yes.
you can deploy the independent drivers to, or the ones that are in
Yeah.
contract or in network with, with AC Elite
Yeah.
Services. They then are working, but they're just driving corporate clients as opposed to individual clients. So, I mean, I'm not saying that they miss out on the opportunity. I was just thinking through the
Yes.
lens
Yes.
of,
We are already in talks with the company. I'm not going to name the
yeah,
company.
yeah, yeah.
They have
Absolutely.
187,000 employees that travel.
Okay.
That's not the total of all their employees, but they have 187,000 that travel. And
Okay.
excuse me, they use a company right now, a primary company for their transportation. And I know that company well, and I know that company outsources a lot of the work because they can facilitate 187,000 clients.
Absolutely.
But I'm talking with a senior level executive that uses our services now.
Okay.
The company that they are contracted with employs me to provide some of their services.
Okay.
And so with this mobile app, it's just a better way for those employees to travel. And so we're going to start off with a small department in that company,
Mm-hmm.
let them see how everything works, let them see how everything, get them all onboarded onto the app and all that stuff, and then progress to where eventually we will be the provider for this particular company and their 187,000 employees that travel. And most of those drivers in those areas, in those 5 cities that they are predominantly in, will probably strictly drive for that company.
Absolutely.
So
Which I
yes,
think, and that's the thing. So as you were talking, that's where my mind was going. I'm just like,
yes,
dude, this sounds like a corporate play, like in the long run. And again, you still do the consumer stuff, and it almost sounds like the consumer side is in essence a gateway to the corporate, meaning the individuals who would take advantage of it are not going to be just a random dude. It's going to be business owners, people in business or whatever,
exactly.
who have direct relationships or are directly affiliated with corporate entities already. You treat them well, then the conversation can open up with, well, what is your corporation or what is your company currently using
Right.
for, black card service? And it makes me think, I remember when I was in the pharmaceutical industry and we'd have national meetings, regional meetings, etc. They used to all in certain the companies I used to work for, I think both of them exclusively use Boston Coach at the time.
Mm-hmm.
This was like years ago. This was,
Most of the coast is still around.
yeah, 10, 15
Yep.
years ago. But it wasn't just in Boston. It was in various cities.
Yep.
I remember seeing the little thing about who was picking us up in the Lincoln Town cars or the whatever.
Yep.
It was always Boston Coach. And so they had exclusive partnerships with them. And as you were talking, I was just like, especially like thinking Atlanta and Los Angeles, building those corporate entities, those corporate relationships where you become the exclusive airport transfer provider for
Right.
all of these major entities.
Oh, absolutely. That's where we're going. And a nugget for people who are in business. Never walk into a company that you don't know anybody in that company or know anything about the company. They don't know anything about you and say, hey, I sell t-shirts. Do you want one?
Mm-hmm. Come on.
Never
Come on.
do that.
No.
Find somebody that you know who has access to that company, who works in that company, has friends in that company, or travel and use that company. Sell them a t-shirt and then allow them to passively introduce that t-shirt to that company or the entity. The reason why I said that is because we want to be careful about how we do things and how we introduce ourselves to the market. I know a lot of people who work for Fortune 500 companies or other big corporations, and I was telling my driver in this area because he was like, man, we should take some cars and go give it to this jet company or go give it to this company or give it to this. I said, do you know anybody in that company? And they said, no. And I said, well, we're not going to do that. What we're going to do you find somebody who utilizes that company's services or somebody who works for that company? Then he said, yes. Then I said, okay, let's go talk to them.
Relationships. Dude,
Relationship.
it's as simple as this. It's not what you know or who you know, it's who knows you.
Exactly.
So listen, if LeBron walks in the room, everybody in the room knows, yo, that's LeBron. If LeBron says, yo, Ace, Mike, what's up? Then they're like, hold up, pause. How does he know these brothers, right?
Exactly.
And that's the whole point. Is like, if relationships, everything starts with relationships. And as you kind of going back to our initial conversation of rethink the way you move, you know, it's not always about selling and telling. It's about cultivating relationships. You know, individuals that I've
100%.
coached over the years, you know, especially ones that go to conferences or go to these meetings and all of that. And a lot of people, most people honestly hate meetings and conferences and all of that. It's kind of a drag for a lot of folks, but it's to rethink the way you move about it, right? In a sense that when I've coached individuals who are headed to conferences, I'm like, dude, you're not here to learn anything. You're here to collect and nurture relationships. That's it.
Right.
No more, no less. And it's like an unlock for a lot of people because, again, like in big collective groups, rarely you're going to get the intellectual breakthroughs and all of that stuff. It's really, you're there to rub shoulders with, to collect and nurture relationships. And if you collect and nurture relationships, and you know this based off of your history, and I know this based off of mine, deals don't get done in the boardroom. They're formalized in the boardroom. The deals get done over a drink. The deals get done playing golf or in the gym or in the sauna or at the park or whatever. That's when all the stuff happens. You just go to the boardroom to take the pictures and have the lawyers sign what they need to sign, right?
In the cap.
Say it again?
In the cap room.
There you go. And that's it. That's it. That's the whole point. Like everything, but it goes back to what you were saying about the power of relationships. And again, I think this whole rethink the way you move is so important because a lot of people get into this notion of I'm trying to do all of this stuff without effectively developing a relationship first.
Exactly.
And dude, Earl Graves and one, I forgot what book it was he wrote, but I remember reading a story about Earl Graves. And one of the things he mentioned was he used to go to some kind of dry cleaner to get a shirt cleaned. And every time he would go in there, the person was always trying to pitch him a business idea and sell him something or whatever. He ended up told the guy he was going to stop coming here because every time I come in here, you're trying to pitch me something. And the whole method or the whole point of the story was you don't pitch something to someone that you don't have an actual relationship with. Build and cultivate the relationship first, then you have the opportunity to offer whatever it is you have to offer.
Exactly. And it's I'm excited, and I don't know, you can tell by my voice, the audience, I'm barely containing my excitement, but I know what we're on the precipice of. I've been, you know, they said it takes 10 years to become an overnight success.
Oh, yeah.
And although I've been successful to whatever degree in this industry for a number of years, I'm 9 years in developing this app.
Okay.
And I understand that companies, not only companies, brands have, I don't know if you've ever heard of the term a critical mass.
Yep, 100%.
And it only happens once in a company. It only happens once in an entity where you have this critical mass and it shifts from ground level and it skyrockets.
Yep.
Now you can continue to grow, but you're only going to have that one time where you have critical mass. And I think about to iPhone. When iPhone first came out, it was only exclusive to AT&T. And if you was with Verizon or T-Mobile, or whatever, you couldn't get an iPhone.
Absolutely.
And everybody was excited about, oh, look, I got an iPhone and I got this. And it was growing. Apple was growing, but they hit a critical mass after that 5-year exclusivity with AT&T where it opened up to the whole marketplace. And when that happened, it absolutely skyrocketed.
Well, hold on. You're touching on one component, but then you also didn't hit on the power of scarcity, right? So
Mhm.
it's utilized in like the sneaker. I'm not a sneakerhead, but I watch a lot of stuff to learn how people understand and how they move, so I can rethink how I move, right?
Mhm.
But like in sneaker culture, when we were kids, when Jordans came out, you could go to Foot Locker and buy Jordans because it was just like they mass produced Jordans. That was just, it
But
was
you have to
just,
do it the day of, because if you did, and they normally come out on a Tuesday. If you
that's
wait
right.
Wednesday or the weekend,
Mhm.
they'd be
They
gone.
be sold out.
Yep.
Well, initially, but then like a couple weeks later, after everybody got them, then they get another shipment in, and
Mhm.
then you could go to Foot Locker and pretty much buy the Jordans when you
Mhm.
wanted them. Like they were there. It was not, they didn't play this scarcity game. But
Right.
now, when I had one of my brothers used to work in one of the retail stores, and he would say when the Jordan release came out in the mall, each store in the mall would only get like 15 or 20 pair, right? It was
Mhm.
like a very limited amount. But the whole point of creating this level of scarcity, which then created this whole resale market where whatever the retail price is, it then goes up. But it was the restriction of the supply, which then created this demand. And now everybody's chomping at the bit to get in. And so I think the exclusivity agreement was twofold. One, it limited the number so they could work the kinks out, right?
Yeah.
But
They
then
think.
but then they also created scarcity, and they created this notion of everybody wants in. It actually happened as well during the pandemic. Now this thing has fallen off, but remember Clubhouse?
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Remember, Clubhouse was like this whole phenomenon that everybody wanted in. You had to be Apple, and I'm team Android, so I never got in on Clubhouse. But everybody was hitting me up and sending me the invites because you had to be invited and you had to be an Apple person. So that created this crazy buzz for Clubhouse,
Yep.
right? And again, now once the pandemic kind of ended, then it fizzled as well. But it was that notion of scarcity. Everybody wanted in. But then when it opened up to everybody, then nobody wanted it anymore. So
Exactly.
yeah,
And
Apple
and
did.
and, and sometimes that's industry specific.
Yes.
And what I mean by that is like, um, in transportation, everybody travels.
Yes, 100%.
So it's not like, oh, you got to be the first to get in. It's like, no, everybody still needs to travel. Everybody still needs to move around point A to
Mhm.
point B and all that stuff. Now, once you get into that, then you can set limitations on who has access to this
Yes.
particular
Mhm.
portion of that. But in this industry, I know that critical mass is already there.
Mhm.
It just needs to be redirected. Like
Mm.
I haven't invented anything that didn't exist. Transportation existed.
Yeah, it's been there.
People still pay for car service to go from point A to point B. Didn't do anything different. People are used to paying for subscription services. Didn't invent anything there. What I'm doing, I'm combining those two resources together and now making it available to the mass public. So now I'm not creating a new marketplace. I'm just redirecting an already existing marketplace.
Hold on, I got. So it's interesting. So you talk, and when you're talking critical mass, I'm sitting, my wheels are turning.
Oh yeah, back to critical mass. But go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
No, I'm just like as you were talking about that, it's just like I'm thinking about what you're doing, and strategically speaking, is the goal critical mass, or is the goal really to have such high demand that you can, from a business perspective, either increase your margins or something? Because you, some people, it's kind of like, Walmart is humongous volume and very low margin, right? But because they got $100 billion in daily transactions, they can skim off a 0.5% off of that 100 billion in transaction, and they're good because of the volume. Very few people have the volume that Walmart or Amazon does, so they have to play on margin. So their whole thing is, it's not about critical mass of so many people and getting slim margin. It's about how do I maximize my margin with not as huge of a bucket of customers. And I think it's interesting perspective because you're talking about a premium service,
Mm-hmm.
and you're also talking about demographics when it comes to the business community, or typically higher net worth individuals, in which they are less price sensitive to what they want. And so to that point, it flows more to this whole notion of, maybe is it more so about this thing that all these people want but can't have, versus this notion of it's something that a lot of people have access to. What are your thoughts?
So it's two-part, and this can segue into a whole nother thing.
Oh yeah, I love it. This is how we roll.
Yeah, just talking. The reason why I talk about critical thinking is, and I get to that in a second, but it goes back to what you mentioned, the chicken or the egg.
Mm-hmm.
I've been known, my company has been known as an entity that provides premium services
Okay.
for an exclusive group of people.
Okay.
Meaning right now, I got some clients that are using my services today, and those services costing them $1,600.
Mm-hmm.
That's premium and exclusivity, because
Okay.
everybody can afford $1,600 a day for car service. I mentioned that some of the wealthiest people in the world were clients of mine.
Mm-hmm.
And we reached out to them. We've been able to grow by being a premium service with some measure of exclusivity.
Okay.
Now, my goals and my aspirations are to do a whole lot of things in the philanthropy space.
Mm-hmm.
I can't necessarily get there by the methods that I'm doing now.
Okay, gotcha.
So,
Okay.
I was mistakenly of the notion that you grow a business and you grow it up and for years and years and years. And then when you get older, you give it to your children, and then they grow it and they expand on it like a mom and pop store.
Yeah.
No, until somebody very wealthy told me, no, the goal of business is to exit the business.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Either via going public or selling it.
Mm-hmm.
And then said, because once you do that, then you can do whatever you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
In whatever space you want to do it. And I know the goals and the things that we want to do, like I said, from a charitable standpoint, that we can't necessarily do now, because everything that we're doing, it provides, stability for our company, stability for my family, but it's not going to get me to that point. The critical mass portion of it is that the critical mass,
I got you.
and what I'm doing is inevitable.
I got you.
And the reason why I say it's inevitable,
mm-hmm.
when Elon Musk was in his garage building things for SpaceX, before Tesla came about and all that stuff. I remember they showed this thing where he first made his first $1 billion, and he went and got it was a McLaren or something. I forgot what kind of car it was, but he had to deliver to his house. He was like, man, this is the pinnacle. This is what I ever wanted. Or even watch Super Pump and watch how Travis Kalanick grew an idea, him and his partners grew an idea to this global brand.
Yes.
Or Apple,
mm-hmm.
all of that. I realized that I am currently in the same space that they were in.
Okay.
I am Jeff Bezos in his little office in 1996. I am Bill Gates in his garage in 1982. And I know what I'm in front of. Okay. The reason why I know what I'm in front of, because Los Angeles International Airport, LAX, they're not the busiest airport in the world. Atlanta, Georgia, Hartsfield is in business. LAX, people get picked up and dropped off at LAX every day, right?
Mm-hmm.
Black car service take people to LAX every day and drop them off, pick them up and drop them off. Taxis pick up and drop off people at LAX every day. Mm-hmm. Uber picks up and drop off people at LAX. Lyft, your cousin, your mom and them pick you up and drop you off at LAX every day.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
How many people you think get picked up and dropped off at LAX every day?
Every day, probably what? 250,000.
Okay, fair enough. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna take away taxis. I'm gonna take away Lyft. I'm gonna take away mom and pops and cousins and uncles and spouses. I'm gonna take away limousine companies. I'm gonna take away public transportation. I'm gonna take away pickups.
Okay.
Well, I'm gonna take away drop-offs. Uber in itself, one entity, only doing pickups at LAX every single day. They pick up 30,000 people.
Yeah, all right, and that's just a regular Tuesday. This is not
regular Tuesday, and that's just one entity, and that's just pickups.
Mm-hmm.
That's not drop-offs. That's not Lyft, taxis.
Mm-hmm. That's just pickups. Yeah,
just pickups for one entity. What I am doing is I'm taking all those pickups at LAX every day and saying, okay, you're paying for transportation. You're paying X amount of dollars for transportation. This is the service that you're getting with that transportation.
Okay.
Now I'm going to elevate your experience and lower your cost. What are you going to choose?
Oh, absolutely. Without a doubt. Without a
So,
doubt. If you can lower the cost and raise the expectation, I mean, that's a no-brainer. It's like it's a win-win for the consumer.
so I know I am in front of this critical mass space that I'm about to enter into.
But it also is going back to what you were saying before, I tap into like motivation. And so it sounds as if the perspective of this is, how do I create this massively robust entity that does a whole lot, that has a ridiculously high valuation, so that either it can go public or it can get acquired? Because my ultimate heart is about, I really want to dive into various philanthropic endeavors.
Yes. So what I want to do, you remember, and she probably ain't gonna, uh, she may, no, I don't think she have anything with me saying her name. You remember Lori Butler?
Lori, but
She was in UT. I think she was in grad school at UT.
okay.
Now she's in, I forget where she's at. I think she's in Texas.
Oh, you talking about L?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Lamecia Butler.
I mean, Lamecia Butler. I don't know why I said
Yeah. That's my girl. That's my home girl. Yep, good people.
She gonna get mad at
She's
me.
in Texas. Shout out to Lamecia. L, what up?
I don't know why I said Lori.
Yep,
Don't cuss
Lamecia.
me.
Yep.
Mark
Well, hold on. Sidebar. It's Lamecia Butler McFarland. She's married.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Yeah, so curse that part out. So you know my girl Lamecia, right?
Yeah.
No, I remember seeing something, and when it was either Katrina or the pandemic. I think it was Katrina, and she worked in an entity where they were providing relief for the victims of Katrina.
Okay.
But what they had to go and do and vet these entities to make sure that they are in need of and could use the funds from FEMA.
Okay.
And so you have a company that'll submit an application like, hey, we were affected by Katrina. We need $1 million to pick up our operations because we was doing this and we were providing food for the homeless and all this stuff. And then they would go and vet and do their research and all this stuff. I reached out to Lamecia a few years ago, and I said, I want to become an entity where we provide resources for a different entity every day for a whole year. Meaning, if you are a women's shelter in Scotland, Oregon, or if you are a homeless shelter in Memphis, Tennessee, or if you are a battered children's place in Arkansas, or wherever you are, and your annual budget is $100,000, I want to be able to provide that entity in Arkansas with their annual budget Monday. Tuesday, go to another place and provide the annual budget Tuesday, Wednesday, so forth and so on. And I said I needed somebody who has experience in going and vetting these organizations who could start up. And I told her my concept, and she fell in love with just like, yeah, she would be willing to help. I didn't know the pandemic was happening, but that was for a fortuitous occasion that it did happen when it happened. But anyway, now that we still have our eyes set on that, that's still something that we want to do. And this critical mass is going to give us the ability to exit this company, be it public or be it via sale, so that we could fund those things.
So your ultimate goal is to, in essence, fund various charitable endeavors and fund their full annual budget. And
we want to take $100,000 and for 365 days give $100,000 to 365 different organizations.
So you just need 3.65 million. Is that correct?
No.
165. No, 100,000 times 10 is million.
That's 10 days.
Yeah, that's just 10 days. Oh yeah, so you need 36.5 million, right? Am I correct?
Need about $32 million.
Oh, it's just 365.
Yeah. Well, 36.5 million, yes.
Yeah. So my math was off.
It's
yeah.
okay.
You can tell I went to Georgia Tech, huh?
So
The doom doom. Well, if
Hey,
you see
hey,
my GPA from Georgia Tech,
hey,
you'll realize like, yeah, that joker
yeah.
probably his math part right.
So $36 million is a lot of money, but $36 million is not a lot when you look at
Not
people.
what now?
When you look at people that are given $billion for philanthropic things, but putting $100,000 into a local community in the middle of Knoxville, Tennessee, can do wonders.
Dude, hold on. So check this out. So now. See, this is the. So what?
Go ahead. My wife's calling. She'll call back. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. No, you better answer that.
I missed it, but she'll call back.
About this, this is live, not live, but this is. I'm not cutting this out neither. So listen, he heard you call and he muted your call. Now this language, I ain't gonna get you in trouble.
I actually was on Do Not Disturb, which I don't know how phone gets through, but I guess her call can get through Do Not Disturb.
It should. See, you know what? See, the Lord know how he work. He work in mysterious ways, and he worked the way he's supposed to. Do not disturb. Wives have a chance or have the ability to bypass. Do not disturb.
It's like that does not equate to me. Well, I want to reach over, reach you.
But so back to what you're saying about like the notion of 36.5 million. Basically, in a calendar year, you want to give $100,000 a day to various, entities or charities, nonprofits, not necessarily major entities, but entities in which $100,000 actually helps them. Because if you look at the vast majority of nonprofit organizations around the country, the vast majority of them, their annual budgets are like 50 grand, 40 grand, exactly. 30 grand, something like that. And so, and the challenge is, and this is where it's interesting, like I saw and I like what you're doing, because you're putting money in the hands, or you're desiring to put resources in the hands of those that actually need it. Because when you see like big gifts and big donations, like was it Jeff Bezos and his ex-wife Mackenzie, Mackenzie, what's her name? Mackenzie, something.
Yes.
Got her last, huh?
Yes, her.
Yeah. But she.
Hello. Hey. Yeah, I'm doing this podcast. Remember? Yes, whatever you get, that's fine. Okay, love you too. I know she's gonna come back here to get it, but you're right.
Hold on. The reason I was saying is because she gave like $100 million or whatever, and then I remember looking at the requirements for the giving, and I remember sending it to a few of the some nonprofit owners or nonprofit founders that I know, and one of them sent me a thing back and laughed, and he was just like, "Dude, did you look at the requirements to qualify for it and to receive the funds? I think you had to have at least, is it $1 million or $5 million annual budget? You had like $1 million annual budget, or $1 million annual budget. You needed to be established for like 5 years. You need to have all these different requirements. And so the local small nonprofit didn't even qualify to get some of that hundreds of millions that she was giving out. And so I like the fact that you're focused on that lower tier. And I'm not gonna say lower tier, because that came off is kind of like I'm
direct to consumer.
Yeah, it's more direct to consumer, where the actual 100 grand actually moves the needle for them. Whereas these other ones, 100 grand just, it probably gets lost in the bureaucracy.
I can give $1 million to Susan G. Komen for breast cancer. Since we're in the month of October. Somebody in Brownsville, Tennessee will never see the benefits of me giving $1 million to Susan G. Komen. Somebody in Brownsville, Tennessee who is dealing with cancer. But if I take $100,000 and take it directly and inject it directly into Brownsville, into that cancer community there, probably everybody in Brownsville, and Brownsville is where I grew up, a small town, is going to see a direct benefit from that, who's affected by cancer in that area.
You know what, dude? I think, so it's interesting. So I'm not one, and I've kind of worked through the rethinking of how I move, but then also the rethinking of how I think as it pertains to impact. Because again, the title of this podcast platform is Impact and Fulfillment. And when you're talking about this mission of finding ways to infuse $100,000 a day into 365 nonprofits with a lower operating budget, I'm one that's like, continue to put that idea out into the stratosphere or into the environment or into the ecosystem or whatnot, because you might come to realize that it might not take you having to create, Ace Elite Services into this publicly traded or into this, 9-figure acquired entity to get to a point in which you can get this done. You might have somebody else or some partners who are willing to say like, fam, I like that. And if you're willing to head it up, I have the resources here for you to go ahead and do that, because very few people focus on, again, the non-major, non-highly capitalized, nonprofit entities.
And we already thought along that process. I already thought along that process. I know that this is going to spur interest from other people who have resources that can aid in this effort. And it's not going to be a one-off or 1 year and then we stop and move on. I know that we're going to be able to generate revenue to where we can do this for years to come and stay small and not become this big thing where the money goes to the masses, where it just comes down into but rather where it affects the individual people in these individual communities. But again, as we talked about, hold on, wait. But as we talked about having the ability to walk into a warm lead versus a cold lead, me building the brand, me getting exposure on a larger basis, me having a platform to say, okay, this is what I'm doing and this is how I'm doing it, it's going to make it a whole lot easier for people to come along and say this. Because right now you see entertainers, athletes, people with money. Somebody can say, hey, I'm doing this fundraiser and I'm doing this and I'm doing this telethon. And they call on those people that they know that have money, and those people that have money automatically donate to this charitable organization because of the person who called them asking them to do it. And they have no idea, they have nothing to do with the organization, they have no interest in it. They just say, I know you and I know what you're about and you want this, here's my money. So by me building this and going through this critical mass, it's going to bring exposure, it's going to bring brand recognition, it's going to bring credibility to everything that I want to do after that point.
Dude, I like that. And what's interesting, I mean, it really speaks more so to where your heart is and where it basically is like almost like using Ace Elite Services as an opportunity to create this pathway of directly benefiting the people, right?
Yes.
It's like just using this as a gateway to do so, whether it's direct, whether it's indirect through relationships, whether it's whatever, it opens up this opportunity. And I think it opens up this bigger conversation of how do we directly benefit those that could really use these resources. But the bigger thing is, and this is where, it becomes challenging, because a lot of individuals who do like plan giving and give, extreme amounts of money, there has to be a significant vetting process, right? And the reason why smaller entities don't get direct access to some of these resources is due to the vetting process. So that's why Mackenzie, I forgot her last name, but Jeff Bezos' ex-wife, that's part of the reason why there are so many requirements in place, is that was a default vetting process that I'm not just dumping money into unproven entities who don't have the infrastructure to handle it, who don't have the, the coaching, the board, et cetera, to manage said amounts of resources. And so to your point, I think you even open up a bigger opportunity of maybe creating either a board or creating some type of entity which helps to create the infrastructure for some of these smaller entities, which give them the ability to properly handle larger donations. Because the other part to it is, it's kind of like a very small business. And you've seen this happen before, where somebody does like a cash mob at a very small restaurant and all these people lined up to eat. And they like, well, damn, we only got enough chicken for 20 customers. Right. We got 500 people out here, and it actually does the reverse, and it doesn't help them. It actually hurts them because they don't have the infrastructure to handle a large influx of resources.
It's going to be multi-layered.
Okay.
And I love it. And I know I don't have the capacity within myself to make this happen. And I'm not happy about Katrina taking place. But I am happy that because it happened, it caused these big entities, FEMA, to pay attention to the mom and pop operations as opposed to the large corporations, because most of the people that were directly affected were these small entities and these small charitable organizations who didn't qualify for mass funding in any other time and period in this history of this country. But FEMA brought it back, was like, we have to give money to them now. And so that's where Lamicia and other people like her came into place, where they had to go and find these companies and vet these smaller companies that don't make $5 million a year, that don't have this, that don't have this, but need an injection of cash.
So you now you hit something, and it's interesting because we don't have to go back almost 20 years, because that was 2005. Hurricane Katrina, damn, that's like almost 20 years ago.
Exactly.
Crazy to think about it. So almost 20 years ago, we don't even have to go that far. About 3 weeks ago, because this is being released on
Helene.
Yeah, you got Helene, right? Yep. I'm from Augusta, Georgia. Helene, that was like great, like the epicenter of Helene. Like Augusta, Georgia got depleted, like trees, houses, all. I mean, it was
Asheville, North Carolina.
Asheville, North Carolina. Listen, for the longest time, you could only access Asheville by air. So I have a buddy here that's a pilot, and he has his own plane, and so he was flying resources in and out from Knoxville to to Asheville, and he was just talking about how devastating it was. But that was the only way, and he had this little plane that could land on grass strips and take off with short runway and stuff. But that's the only way they could get resources into the Asheville area.
That's crazy. So,
yeah. But to your point, that whole thing with FEMA and resources, there's still some challenges as it pertains to resource distribution and how things are allocated and how people get the direct help that they need. Again, my parents had trees down in the yard. Thank God their house was not damaged, but I have a lot of family friends who are in temporary housing now for the next few months because their houses were completely destroyed, due to Helene. And so,
And so I love creating.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a facilitator, I'm a creator, and I realize that. And so I need help, ideas. I was like, hey, I want to build this house tomorrow. Okay, y'all find some people to build it. That's how I am, and I realize that. But I understand that by taking this on, I'm gonna have to hire staff to go and find these organizations.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'm gonna have to hire staff that can facilitate the movement of funds from this entity to this organization and all this stuff. Then I have to have a staff that can oversee the displacement of these funds and say, okay, you're going to be in direct contact with this entity in Asheville week by week or month by month. And we've allocated $100,000, but $20,000 is going to go where? $40,000 is going to go where? $10,000 is going to go where? $2,000 is going to go where? And to make sure that the funds are being used for what it was intended to be used for throughout the year. So it's going to create job opportunities for a whole lot of people. It's going to create ways for a whole lot of people to give back. And it's going to be a job or it's going to be an experience that has substance to it.
So now this is kind of, it really lines up with regard to, again, the mission of the podcast, impact and fulfillment. What is the thing that spawned your interest in this particular philanthropic endeavor?
Ooh, it's a loaded question. Partly my environment where I grew up in. I grew up in a place of 12,000 people. We didn't have access to a lot. I never ate sushi until I got to college. I never. I think the biggest, if you went to the Sizzler, Western Sizzler, or if you went to the local steakhouse, then that was high living. We didn't have a mall in our city. The biggest store we had was Walmart. And still to this day, the biggest place in my town is Walmart. So not having access to a lot and not seeing a lot made me naturally want to acquire more. But I think the way that my parents raised me and always having a heart to think of people who are less fortunate than we are. And saying that, that's coming from uh, me growing up in a place that was a period in our lives where we had an outhouse.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm.
I didn't grow up with a silver spoon in my mouth by any means. But
Mm-hmm.
even in the conditions that we lived in, where we wore hand-me-down clothes, you know, what my brother wore last year to school, I wore this year to school,
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that. Uh, and I thought, like, man, we struggling barely to get by. But my parents always put us in remembrance of, like, there are people who are worse off than you are.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like,
Absolutely.
how? You
Mm-hmm.
know? But I don't know. God always gave me a heart for people, and and it's been a long journey for me to get to this point where I am from a financial standpoint. And I'm 46 years old, but I never wanted to be a hoarder. Um, I'm a minimalist by nature, even in how I decorate and what I acquire. And every time I move, I give away furniture, I give away clothes, I give away this. I don't just pack it and pack it and pack it.
Right.
But I want as many people as I encounter to enjoy some of the freedoms that I have by not having to worry about finances.
Mm.
And because of that, you look at, and even in the space that I'm in, I see billionaires all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But me and my wife, we was out eating last night, and the waiter was telling us, like, "Hey, this guy right here, he's a billionaire. He's one of my best clients. He's here all the time, and he's this and that." And the guy sitting at the bar lonely,
Mm.
and I was like, I never want to be wealthy and lonely. I said, I only want to be poor and lonely.
Mm-mm.
But
Mm-mm.
what good is it to have all these resources if you can't share it and make an impact, a direct impact in your immediate world and in the world in which we live in?
Mm.
So,
Dude, I love it. And, you know, it's one of those things where, and this is an interesting perspective. I was listening to Will Smith, and he was doing he was getting interviewed, and, it's a clip that circulated, but he said,
like, what else can you do?
yeah, I know, right? Basically, and he was just saying, he was just like, I wish everybody had the experience that I had, where you get to a place in which there is absolutely nothing in the world that can make you happy. You have access to anything, you have access to everything, you can go anywhere, and you come to realize none of this makes you happy. And it's like,
Mhm.
and people trip on it because they're like, well, give me them problems. But he was just like, I wish everybody had that experience, right?
Because it's not fulfillment.
Because it's not fulfillment. I mean, the title of this podcast is
Right.
Impact and Fulfillment. Impact is the delta of your involvement. Fulfillment is that through line of joy, that thing that allows you to sleep good at night, that thing that really gives you that peace that surpasses understanding. Like, that's what this thing is all about. Our ultimate goal in life is to make an impact, but then to also have fulfillment in the process. A lot of times we focus solely on the impact, so we generate the wealth, but then I talk to people all the time. They got all the money in the world, but they're miserable, right?
Mhm.
On the flip side, you see people who don't have much of nothing, but dude, their life is
Happy.
full of joy.
Mhm.
And the
And
reason I said all of that is, you've had a blessed existence, right? Again, you came from Brownsville, Tennessee to where you are now. And we didn't talk a whole lot about the nuances of your story. And if people follow you on social media, they'll be like, well, dang, who sang him happy birthday at his birthday? And who they eating dinner with, and where they at, and all this stuff, and he married to this and whatever. I mean, people don't,
mhm.
people, if they follow you, and we'll give your social media stuff out if it's public or whatever, for people to kind of follow your story and everything. But the thing is, you've been able to see the other side of this and to realize that, dang, okay, I don't want to take all this with me. All this stuff doesn't matter. We didn't been LA, Hollywood, all this kind of stuff. All this stuff is a facade. This doesn't make you any better or worse than anybody. You've been
Mhm.
with the A-list whatevers, and then you've been with people who ain't got nothing. And guess what? There's really no difference between them.
You know what changed my perspective? Um, Playing football at the University of Tennessee.
Okay.
how did that happen? Obviously, Tennessee is you play football at Tennessee, you're at the pinnacle of this sport on that level, especially in the 90s with Peyton Manning and Pullis Price and Fred White and Terry Fair and Leonard Little and come on, I could keep going.
Like, yeah, you keep going. You can keep going. Hey, look, one of my good bros, man. We talk all the time. Is Ray Austin? Were you there at the same time as Ray?
When I got there, he was leaving.
He was leaving. Oh yeah. Ray is my dog.
Yeah. So, and I'm saying this about sports on a whole. If somebody was to mention Warwick Dunn to you right now, you'd be like, man, I remember him. He did this and did this, and where's he at? And where's he doing now? Or you mentioned any of the names that I just mentioned that played at Tennessee. A lot of people who have notoriety or who had notoriety or used the man in campus, used the man in school, used the big man on campus in high school. There's an expectation that is placed upon you that you have to live up to with or without your consent. And you're going to be judged by the expectation that was placed upon you and what you did with those expectations. And these are expectations that you didn't even put on yourself necessarily. And so when I looked at it, it's like, man, if I had to change this while I was in college, or I had to done this, or if I had done this differently, or I had to make this wrong decision, and if I was rethinking back then, then I could have positioned myself to be in the NFL and to do this and be the big man on campus and all of this. But then I look at some people who were at the top of that, and now you see where they are, but you see a lot of people, even movie stars, athletes, like we just talked about, and I'm seeing all the stuff in Hollywood. People have to live up, or they try to live up to the expectation of what they once were.
Come on.
And the weight that carries is unbearable. That's why you have people overdose on drugs and this and that and get in trouble and, a whole gamut of things. And that can happen without success. People all walks of life can have those problems. What I'm saying is it's sometimes harder for those people to maneuver through life, because the guy that was on the Cosby Show, he was probably happy working at the grocery store.
Come on.
And somebody saw him at the grocery store like, oh my God, look at this. This is so sad. This is this. Man might be enjoying his life away from stardom, away from the limelight, away from all that. But the perception is that, oh, you was on one of the biggest shows.
You must have fallen off.
Or why didn't you take that and expound upon that? And for me, it was like, I'm glad now that things happened the way that they happened at the University of Tennessee, although I am so happy that I was able to experience that, especially at that time, at the height of Tennessee football. That was the critical mass for Tennessee football. I don't care. As much as they doing now, nothing was like it was back
in the 90s. Yeah.
Nothing will ever compare to Tennessee volunteer football in the 90s. Okay, what they ain't gonna win 5 state championships. That's a good compared to the 90s.
It's just people would beg to differ, my boy.
No,
go ahead.
I mean,
I know what you're saying.
There, but it was just
it was different.
Elevation was just different. But I've been able to move post University of Tennessee in a way that allowed me it afforded me the opportunities to mess up. It afforded me the opportunities to be incarcerated. It afforded me the opportunities to start a business that haven't failed, and then restart and fail and restart and fail. It afforded me these opportunities to go through life without outside expectations placed upon me. And so if people saw me, I remember after college, I was working in the mall, in West Town Mall, at a kiosk, at the Dell Computer kiosk. So one of the football players that came by, he was going to Build-A-Bear to buy something for his daughter, and he was in the NFL. I was like, man, that was kind of embarrassing moment. Like, man, he's in the NFL, and we used to play on the same field, and now I'm working at a kiosk in the mall. But then I realized it's like, I don't have the expectation that he has,
Mm.
or the expectation that's placed on him from general public is not placed upon me.
Mm.
If he was at this kiosk now, everybody would be looking down on him like, man, you didn't fill off, you didn't did this, you didn't did that.
Well,
And me,
but that's other people's expectations,
and
right?
that's other people's expectations. And you can never escape that when you're in that limelight, or you in at the pinnacle of whatever it is that you do. Whether you're a childhood musical star, whether you're
Whatever it is,
whatever it is.
But the thing is, but it also ties back into rethink the way you move, because the reality is there's a quote, and I don't have the credit to the author of the quote, but the quote is, those convinced against their will are of the same opinion still. Meaning, if somebody has a formulated opinion about something, you're not going to convince them otherwise. So if they see you as always an athlete, and they define you from your time at University of Tennessee, or your time in the NFL, or your time doing this, or your time as a successful businessman, or your time as a father, or as a husband, or as whatever the thing is, whatever people formulate their opinion about you, that's how they're going to see you. And there's really not a whole lot you can do to change that, right? The key is to making sure that you don't necessarily pigeonhole yourself in any one phase or segment of life, because time is a continuum that continuously goes on, right? That's definitely number one, is to make sure that you don't pigeonhole yourself. We can't control what other people think about us. The other part to this is everything is cyclical, right? If you really pay attention to it, it's interesting. Even you look at entertainers, athletes, celebrities, even public figures, right? Everything is cyclical and everybody has their run. So case in point, you look at Dr. Martin Luther King. People still talk about Dr. Martin Luther King today. If you really take a look back at his trajectory, for what we talk about, you're only talking about a 12-year span, everything that we're talking about.
Even 5 years, you want to get a little closer.
You want to get real close, but I mean, you start from like the 1955, the March till 68. I mean, that's 13 years, right? You look at Malcolm X, from what we know and the speeches and the stuff that we saw, you're talking about a 5-year window of the stuff that we remember. But that stuff, that condensed entity, it has lasted. You look at Jesus. Jesus was 30 to 33. That's what he did his time. It was not some thousands of years of work.
Look at Tupac. He died at 25.
The Biggie was 26. I'm just saying, when you start looking at it, very few people, and that's why, like, when you see somebody who has like generation, like that's constantly putting stuff out or doing things over the course of 20, 30 years, that's a freaking anomaly, right? Most of the artists that you think about, you're not thinking about them currently. You're thinking about that album they dropped in 96. That's the thing that's still in your mind.
Exactly.
It's not what they're doing now.
That's that critical mass point.
Well, yeah, and that's the whole point. And so the reason I'm saying that about, for people, when you start looking at your life, when it's your time to put your foot on the gas, you got to put your foot on the gas, because this is your window. And the thing is, your window might be 12 months, your window might be 12 years, but more than likely your window is not going to be 70 years, right? As it pertains to being at critical mass, being at the top of the spectrum as it pertains to impact and, relevance. And that's why it's so important.
And the reason why I said that, because going back to fulfillment and being able to impact, be impactful. What am I known for?
Right now? Are you asking?
Just somebody walks through. Do you know Antwuan? Do you know somebody else? How do you know him? Or what is he known for?
Depending on if
is
they're in
that the record that
transportation,
you can just point to?
Well, but on the flip side, if they're in executive transportation, they might be like, I think I know that brother, man. I saw his billboard in Atlanta, or I know that brother. I think I took his services in that niche industry. But hold on. And I would even sidebar this again. This is our wide-ranging conversation. The thing is, and this is where, like when I coach individuals who are, struggling to put things out publicly, right? They're a little nervous about releasing this and releasing that. And I'm like, dude, even if you got 1 million followers, don't nobody know you. Like, that's the part. People don't understand this. There's 8 billion people in the world, right? Even if you got millions of people, I've had videos that have had 20 million views and this and that or whatever. dude, I'm still unknown. I can walk down the street and nobody knows who I am. You know what I'm saying? Like it is what it is. And that's the
And
whole point.
that's what I was going to say. The goal in life is to know as opposed to be known.
Yes, I like that. Yep. To know as opposed to being known. And from the standpoint of power, so it goes back to the Frank Lucas, the loudest one in the room is typically the weakest one in the room, right? Because, and this by being around truly influential people, the ones who got it ain't got nothing to prove. They're the least likely to put themselves out there. They actually want to pull the spotlight away from them.
There's this family that people who know this family, but the every average day person doesn't know this family. And it was brothers specifically in this family. They are some of the most powerful people in this world.
Mm-hmm.
They were clients of mine.
Mm-hmm.
I've been in the vehicle with them. The decisions that we think we're going to make on November the 5th, they make these decisions behind closed doors before we even have wind of it.
Yep, absolutely.
I don't know this from hearsay. I know this because I've been in direct communication with these people. Been in the room.
You're in the room. Yeah.
You don't know who these people are.
Mm-hmm.
They're hiding in plain sight.
That's how it's designed. So listen, listen. So you even think about, it's interesting, like people like the whole mafia movies and mafia shows and all. And yeah, the loud one and all of that gets all the attention. But the one who got all the juice is that little old dude with the fedora on, sitting in the corner, smoking a cigar with them old loafers on, with the newspaper.
Right.
Who's sitting outside every day, who people think is somebody's grandpa. That's the shot caller. And the thing
what did the guy from Shark Tank have a check? What did he say?
Oh yeah. That's it. The whole thing about the t-shirt.
Beware the guy in the t-shirt.
That's it. Beware of the guy in the t-shirt. Like, and so to your point, and so I have a theory when it comes to power. Power does not have eyes and ears, only nerve endings, right? Mm-hmm. Because power doesn't see, power doesn't hear. Power only moves when power feels. And you have to have a direct connection, and you have to do something that makes power feel for power to move. So when we do antics, the antics, those are not for people who are influential in power. They don't read that. It's just kind of like if you connect with individuals who are of various socioeconomic status, like comments. Like if they make posts, they don't read the comments. For a lot of them, they're not even running their social media accounts, right? Exactly. Like you're there on an interview and somebody's having to show them, hey, you see what so-and-so said about you. They're like, oh, okay. I didn't even know that. But then in the comments, it looks like you've been going back and forth with them. That's their company running your social media. I just said all of that to say the antics are a distraction, even like in this. So this is getting released. So we're having this conversation a few days before that, but this is getting released on the Monday of election week. So this is released the day before the United States elections are going down. There's a lot of antics. There's a lot of stuff that's going on. And like Antwuan mentioned, a lot of these decisions have already been made, one, and all the stuff that gets people emotionally triggered is designed for those who are emotionally triggered by antics. And going back to my definition, power doesn't have eyes and ears, only nerve endings. So if your eyes are seeing and ears are hearing and you're triggered by what someone is saying, their point, they basically accomplished their goal because they're keeping you distracted. Because
and people don't want to hear that conversation. They think it's conspiracy theories. They think it's this. They think it's like, well, no, this, and this, and the third. And they think that, like Gladiator is one of my favorite movies. Mm-hmm. And Marcus Aurelius' wife, daughter, who was in love with the gladiator. Mm-hmm. She said, you control the mob, you control Rome.
Come on.
And the mob was the people in Rome, and it was chaotic. And you show them great antics and theatrics in the Colosseum, you control Rome.
Hold on. Let's take it even a step further. The concept bread and circus. Bread and circus.
Give the people bread.
Give the people entertainment. Bread and keep them entertained. So basically, that's where we get the whole concept of keep them fat and happy, right? Mm-hmm. You keep the people fat and happy, they'll stay out your way, and you can You don't have to rethink the way you move. You can just move the way you want to, because the people are fat and happy and they're out the way. And see, these are things that once you start navigating in circles where you do connect with individuals of significant influence and power, you see that they're just people like everybody else, but they do move differently. That's the part that is, and that's why, again, rethink the way you move is such a powerful statement. It's that, yes, everybody, we're all created equal. God loves us all. And just because you got money, you know better or worse than anybody. But when you pay attention and you study, I love to study people. I love to read bios. I love to look at individuals. When you study individuals, you can point out, oh, this one got the juice because they move differently. It's not about what they're driving. It ain't about what they're wearing. It's not about the, who, they don't care about the cars. They can buy 1,000 of them. Who cares about that?
It's how they navigate.
It's how they navigate. It's the stuff that they allow to get to them. Like, again, so check this out. I was at a place the other day and we were having lunch and this dude walked up and basically, after the guy walked away, the dude I was sitting with at lunch said, "You know who that is?" And I was like, "No." He was like, "That building down near UT, the name, that's the guy." I was like, "Oh." He was like, "Oh yeah, he has FU money." I was like, "Really?"
Right.
Yeah. And so what he said was, he was just like, when I say FU money, like, he's the one that if he doesn't agree with something, he's like, "Yo, that's bullshit." And he'll just call it straight out. Or if he likes something, he's all in. If he likes you, it's great, great relationship, etc. But if he doesn't hold punches. He'll tell you straight up, "This is bullshit. I don't like it. I don't like that. I'm not going here," because there's nothing you can financially do to him because he has FU money. Right. And I thought through the lens of, in our society, we put such a premium on the tangible wealth, right? That people don't feel comfortable operating with integrity and speaking truth until they get to a point of having FU money. And I thought through the lens of, what if we had FU faith in how we operate? Meaning, I'm going to operate in integrity, not because I got, multiple commas in, at my disposal at all times, but because I have this level of faith and confidence in who I am and who I'm created to be, that I'm going to speak truth. I'm going to be honorable. I'm going to have integrity. I'm going to walk in power. And I'm going to own the room, because I know that nobody in here is created any better than me. Nobody's any worse than me. But I'm also not going to put my power simply in my net worth. And I think that's where societally we have priorities kind of out of whack, because we feel as if you get to a certain financial status, then now you have the right to operate in purpose and operate in power. I'm like, no, you could be broke as a joke. You should still walk in power because of who you created to be, who God made you to be.
I don't think that's a societal issue. I think that's a demographic issue. What I mean by that is that we are me and you, our generation is the first generation in our culture and our ethnicity that was able to not only go to higher education and beyond, but then have the means and the ability to operate in the open market in terms of investments, in terms of the stock market, in terms of this, without judgment or impunity, or without being cast down, if that were.
No, real talk. You got to think about it.
Other ethnicities have been doing this for centuries.
Yeah.
We're just now coming into where, now I know Madam C.J. Walker was a billionaire by her standards and all that stuff, but
that's an exception.
That's an exception. We are now coming to the point where you can go down the street or go into any city and see a Black millionaire, see Black billionaires. We're just now learning how to spend money. Back when my parents were growing up, like, you had to go uptown. You had to put on a suit, dress up to go uptown, put on your Sunday clothes to go uptown to go to the market.
That's right.
Now you walk in the workplace with tennis shoes and sweats and whatever. It was a status thing. Or if you had a Cadillac, like, man, he didn't reach where he's driving a Cadillac on the weekend to church and all that stuff. It was a status thing. And our people, we assimilate wealth with what you can buy. We assimilate status by what you have, what you drive, and all that stuff. Other ethnicities have been well beyond that. Now they see their wealth in their name on the building, or their name on this campus, or their name of this, or them buying this island, or them being able to give $1 billion to this charitable organization. We're not there yet. We're still trying to drive the Bentley.
Well, yeah, well, again,
as a host.
but it's interesting. So I have a young guy here, and he comes from a family that has some significant resources or whatnot. But we talked the other day, and he said, Mike, when it comes to wealth, if it doesn't give you space and access, it's pointless. He's like, the only reason for it is it gives you more space or it gives you access. Outside of that, it's really pointless. It's not about showing it, because it's just like, okay, if you can buy 100 Bentleys, it's not impressive for somebody to drive up in a Bentley. You're just like, dude, there's a guy, I don't know if you're familiar with him. His name is Ray. He created the company Myrna, that ultimate concierge service. What's his name? Ray. God dang it, I forgot. I'm gonna have to look his name up. Hold on, I'm gonna look his name up real quick, because
why are you looking this name up? I'm glad you said that about, you could buy 1 million Rolls Royces, 100 Rolls Royces, and it's like whatever.
Yeah. Okay.
And backstory, people don't know that the last time that I owned a Rolls Royce, I was going to meet you and your wife for lunch in LA.
Dude, listen.
Crashed the car, and that was the last time I owned one. And then I was talking to my brother yesterday, and I said, I get a fulfillment in driving this type of vehicle. It's not the most expensive, this, that, and the other, third. And I said, because when you drive a Rolls Royce, I don't care wherever you go, you're going to be overdressed.
That's right.
It's going to be ostentatious, and you're going to be overstated. If you're in a Rolls Royce, there is nowhere you can go and you're going to fit in.
Come on. No, you
not
stand out.
One single place that you can drive your Rolls Royce to and you're going to fit in. You're going to stand out. You're going to stick out like a sore thumb wherever you go. And I'm so glad that you called me to go to lunch. And
dude, so hold on. Okay, sidebar. So I gotta tell the quick story, and I gotta go and pick up the kids in a second. But I gotta tell that story. So we were in LA, and this was like what, 2018, what was that? 2018,
2018,
something like that. So we were going to eat. We were out in Los Angeles, and we were like, man, let's go get some lunch. So me and my wife, we're going to meet Antwuan to come get some lunch. And so we were sitting there waiting, and he texted me. He was just like, yo, I just had an accident, man. I was like, uh-oh, you all right? Whatever. He was like, yeah, I'm good. But the car looks like it's totaled or whatnot. And so, but he was like, I still want to do lunch. So I'm going to take an Uber and come meet y'all at lunch. He was driving a brand new Rolls Royce, got T-boned in a corner. But then he went from the Rolls Royce to an Uber to come meet us for lunch. Great lunch. He was going to call an Uber to go back to the crib. And we were like, well, we can drop you off. I mean, we got the car. And we were driving this old 1992 Honda Civic that my in-laws just had at the crib just to kind of bum around town in. No air conditioner and all of that. And Antwuan was driving a brand new Rolls Royce, but he left the restaurant, had to sit sideways because the back seat was so small, in a 1992 white Honda Civic that didn't have no air conditioner, that had manual hand roll the windows down.
True story.
To drive back to the crib. So it's like you came in a Rolls Royce, you left in a 1992 Honda Civic, and guess what? We had a good time nonetheless.
Great time. And I wasn't like, oh my God, I'm going home. I don't know what I'm doing. Like, no, I'm hungry. Let's go eat.
Yeah, I'm hungry. Let's go eat.
I'll be there in a minute.
That's it. And I tell that story too, because it shows people, and it shows the whole notion of it doesn't matter. It's all still transportation. Now, again, some people in the cars, you're in the cars. It is what it is. Yeah. But it's the whole notion of we're all the same. We're all people. We all enjoy good things, but we're also not above jumping in the backseat of an old school Honda Civic to get where we got to go.
Come on, man. Not love it. And it's funny. I know who I am, and I know my worth, and I know where I'm headed to. And sometimes I'll be in a place or I'll be somewhere. I remember the other day, and my wife sometimes, she was like, you going outside Wrinkle? I'm like, yep, I'm just going to Home Depot. And I'm in there and I'm grabbing, some wood, because I just built a fence because we brought our dog out here. So building the fence and all this stuff. I could hire somebody to do it. I'm a country boy. I can't wait to go find me a dually and drive around town in a dually. But it's like the person that's looking at me picking up this lumber or whatever probably has no idea of my worth or my value or who I am or whatever. And that's not even the point. The point is, it's like, I am content in going to Home Depot in a pickup truck and picking up some lumber to come back and make a fence, regardless of how much money I have, regardless of how much money I don't have, regardless of my status in this world or whatever the case may be. But by me never losing sight of that, or my dad, he passed away, instilling to me, it's like, man, the only thing that matter in life is your family and the joy that you have spending time with them.
Come on now.
That's it.
Dude, listen. It's nothing more. It's like, again, and it's cool. Like, I mean, wealth is a game, right? You go and you create and do your thing, have some fun, build some stuff, impact a lot of people. It's a game. What it really comes down to is, how do you impact the lives of others? How do you find joy in the process? Do you leave things better than you found them, right? And how do you make somebody's day a little bit brighter, right? And then when you start thinking about legacy, you start thinking about kids, it's just like, how do I model things with my wife so that my son sees how a man's supposed to treat a woman? How do I model things with my wife so my daughter recognizes how a woman is supposed to be treated by a man? How do we create opportunities for them to grow and become the best version of who they are so that they can ultimately live their purpose that God's placed inside of them? Like, how do we, dude, it was a time I went to a grocery store one day and I was on my earbuds, I was talking to somebody, and I was passing through the grocery store, and this lady came by and she was trying to get by, and I just smiled at her because I couldn't talk because I had earbuds in. I smiled at her and said, okay, you can go by. She chased me down like 3 rows at the grocery store. She was in tears, and she said, I've had such a shitty day. You don't know how much your smile meant to me. Yeah. What I'm saying is, it's just like little things like that it's like, how do you do that continuously throughout the day? How do we light the torches of others, or light the candles of other people? That's what this thing is all about, man. Because when we shut it down, when our eyes close for the last time, and we go on to spend time with Jesus for eternity, dude, when we want to get that well done, my good and faithful servant.
That's all that's gonna matter.
I also want to be known that whatever he gave me, I used it to the fullest capacity. That's it.
And that's so you say, what spread that on? That's what I want to do. And that's why, I want to rethink how I move so that I can be impactful and have fulfillment.
Come on.
That's it. Every time somebody asks me, somebody be like, hey man, how you doing? Go to the store, like, how you doing today? My response is, every single time, I'm above ground. That's it. Anything else that happens in life that day, I can deal with. I'm above ground.
That's right.
Which means I still have time to be impactful, still have time to make meaningful change, still have time to find fulfillment.
Dude,
that's it.
Listen, man. Listen, I gotta go pick the kids up.
Pleasure, man.
Anyway, yeah, but dude, so listen. So as far as contact info and all that stuff, I'm gonna put in the show
on any platform. Ace Elite.
Okay, gotcha. Ace Elite Services,
LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram.
Gotcha. So listen, and it's in the show notes, so y'all make sure to follow Ace Elite Services, all platforms. If you're needing airport transfers, specifically in Atlanta or Los Angeles, if you got a corporate entity that needs a lot of black car services, reach out to my dude, man.
Let's grow. Let's
grow, man.
Let's grow and be impactful.
Hey, listen, man, I'm super proud of you, man. Keep up the good work, brother. Keep up the good work. And so, because y'all are now bi-coastal between Atlanta and LA, I don't know, during Christmas, are we gonna see y'all on the West Coast, or y'all?
We'll figure it out.
We'll connect.
But we'll be in Knoxville. We might not be able to be there for homecoming, but we'll be in Knoxville soon, and then we'll cross paths.
Yeah. Hit me up. Let me know. We'll get together, do dinner, let wives meet each other, and all that kind of stuff. All right, brother. Hey, man, proud of you, man. Keep up the good work, man. Too. All right, man. Hey, listen, everybody, make sure to follow Coach Mike D across all social media. Make sure to follow my man, Ace Elite Services, everywhere on social media. Grab a copy of my book, The 33 Laws of Impact and Fulfillment. Actually, grab a copy of Antwuan's book, Rethink How You Move. Is that currently on Amazon as well?
Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Rethink the Way You Move. You see
Rethink the Way You Move. So listen, y'all got 2 books to buy. The 33 Laws of Impact and Fulfillment and Rethink the Way You Move. All right. Well, y'all be
Dig it.
blessed, well, and wise. And I'll holler at you. All right. Peace.